Thankfully, I've got a guess. Dan Kovalik. Daniel Kovalik. Daniel, man, I have no idea what has transpired today. You are the only guest that showed up.
Aw.
I don't know what the hell happened today. I've had to carry the show on my own. I still had 500 and some people here, so God bless them for staying and listening to me. Um, I just did segment after segment after segment after segment. But thank you for joining me, man. You doing okay?
I'm doing great. Always good to be with you. I'm glad to be here for you.
Oh, you're a bit staticky today. Said it one more time.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here for you. Let me check my Wi-Fi. Am I still staticky?
Well, your picture is fine, but your voice is staticky. Guys, are you hearing him okay, or is this just me hearing him this way?
Let me do something.
Okay, this ain't like a robot. Looks like Masai would not be giving Jamal a break today. Mr. Ripley, I have no idea what's going on today.
Is that any
Usually,
better?
a little bit better, but they're saying static. They're hearing it also. It's just, they say you sound like a robot.
Even now. Okay. I tried to improve my internet.
No, you're right. Do this for me. Go back out and come back in for me and see if that helps.
I'll do it. I'll do it. Yeah, you got it.
What the hell? What the hell is happening today? What the hell is happening today? What the hell is happening today? I don't know what is taking place today. I swear to God, I don't. I swear to God, I don't. All right, let's see. All right, Dan,
How's
talk
that?
to me.
Hello.
Much
Hello.
better. Much better.
Okay, great.
Much better.
Okay, good to be here. Good
How you
to
doing,
be
man?
here.
You doing all right?
Always good to see you.
Daniel, I have no idea what took place today. All of my guests flaked out. Every last one of them, I have no idea what happened. But Daniel Kovalik, he's an American human rights, labor rights lawyer, political activist. He previously taught at International Human Rights at the University of Pittsburgh School of Law. Daniel, thank you for joining me, man.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I want to, there has been, have you noticed a lot of media saying stuff like, let me see if I can find it right here, stuff like this, that Trump is pressuring Netanyahu. The U.S. pressured Israel to end the war in Gaza after Donald Trump's visit to the Middle East. Here's another one. A screaming headline from the Jerusalem Post. We will abandon you if the war continues, Trump tells Israel. Now they're pulling this from some random anonymous source from the Washington Post. I, I don't know if you know how I feel about anonymous sources. I don't think much about anonymous sources. I remember when Dick Cheney was an anonymous source for the Iraq War. And Dick Cheney would be an anonymous source, and then he would go on TV and reference the New York Times with nobody knowing that he was the anonymous source that he's referencing. So my belief, my take on anonymous sources, it's not much at all. For all I know, there's some spook that's putting out information in order to push the media in a particular direction, and the media runs with it. But because of the headline, it's a screaming headline. We will abandon you. Like it's so loud that all of the media has been carrying that particular headline. Now, when they actually talk to somebody like Huckabee in the Trump administration, it's like, this is nonsense. He's like, I don't know who's peddling this nonsense. The only thing you need to do is ask the president himself. All right. So when you talk to the president, and this question comes up, hey, is there any daylight between you and Bibi Netanyahu? Like people say that, that you two are not necessarily on the same page, but is it true? And of course, Donald Trump says, no, there's no daylight between us. Rubio comes out, no, there's no daylight between us. And I showed the clips and I showed the images prior, before you got here. Is it this one? Okay, no. I showed the clips before you got here, where Trump himself effectively says, no, there's no daylight. We're on the same page. And even as I keep pointing out to people, it would be impossible for Israel to carry out what they're doing without the U.S. supplying the bombs, the weapons, the guns, the bullets, the money, and everything else. Why do you think this reporting is coming out like this? It came out once before, and the reason it came out the last time was in order to create distance between the U.S. and Israel, while Israel carried out this kind of genocidal rampage that they've been doing for the last, up the ante over the last several weeks. Why do you think, though, that they're coming out with these headlines like that, that somebody put this chum in the water that the media is running with?
Well, because I think that the Trump administration and all the Western governments who also are saying, a number of other Western governments are saying similar things. If Israel doesn't stop this soon, we're going to have to step in. We can't support this. They know that what's happening is morally reprehensible. They know it looks terrible. They know their own populations find it reprehensible. So they're throwing people a bone. This is exactly what Biden did, for his entire term after October 7th. This is, once in a while he and or Kamala or someone else would say, oh, this is terrible. All these civilians are dying. That needs to stop. And yet the bombs and the munitions kept flowing. And we know now, by the way, that while Biden and Kamala would claim they were pushing very hard for a ceasefire, it turns out, as many of us suspected, that was never true. They weren't
Yep.
pushing for ceasefire, right? I think the same thing is happening now. Politically, the Trump administration, in turn, for the benefit of the American people, for the benefit of world opinion, has to look like they're doing something to stop this abomination that's happening in Gaza. But I think the reality, the truth, is the same truth as it was for the Biden administration. They really aren't trying to stop it, and they won't stop it, not unless something else intervenes to force their hand. And why do I say that? Because the death toll mounts every day. I mean, I saw a figure that between like March 18th and the present,
Hmm.
something like 2,500 Palestinians have been killed, and that's the ones we know about. Again, there's I'm sure many more that died that we don't know about. The U.S. government is now estimating that within 48 hours, 14,000 Palestinian babies will die of famine if something isn't done. But nothing's being done. In fact, yesterday was it yesterday or the day before I woke up? I think yesterday. And I was excited because there was some news coming out. Okay, Israel's finally been forced to allow aid into Gaza.
5 trucks.
Well, what's that?
It was like
You,
five
you saw
trucks, three of
five
which were
trucks.
floating. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw 9 trucks, and 2 of the trucks were shrouds. We're
Yep.
bringing shrouds to wrap dead bodies in. Okay, this is a cruel joke. This is nothing, right? And by the way, if the U.S. really cared about the Palestinian people, what would prevent the U.S. from sending in ships, planes of aid right now to help
Or
people? Nothing.
or telling them to stop the money. So,
Well, and
hey,
that's true too. But
yeah,
even if yeah, which they're not going to do, they're not going to stop the aid. I mean, the military assistance. But even aside from that, why aren't they, if they care about dead babies, why aren't they airlifting in formula? Why aren't they airlifting in food? They could do it if they really cared. They could say they just had all these aircraft carriers in the Red Sea to fight Yemen. Why couldn't they bring those aircraft carriers in with aid and water? The fact is,
I
they
guess Daniel.
don't care. They don't care.
I guess my point is, Daniel, we are giving them 80% of what they're
Hmm.
doing. We are effectively paying to keep their economy afloat. You
Yeah.
just tell them, let in the aid. Like this is not like the notion that we have to fly in and do airlifts
Well,
for a
that's true too.
proxy
Yeah.
that we're paying for is outrageous. Like when Joe
Yeah.
Biden was like, we're going to build a bridge. Okay, why do you need to do that? Like the notion
Yeah.
that like you're
And of
paying
course,
all of,
and
no
no
good.
aid ever went across that bridge. That was a joke too. I mean, this is all theater. Everything
Yep.
they're saying about caring about the Palestinian people is just pure theater.
Yes.
So this is Trump talking about Netanyahu and whether or not there's a rift between the two.
Are you frustrated at all with Prime Minister Netanyahu?
No, look, he's got a tough situation. You have to remember there was an October 7th that everyone forgets. It was one of the most violent days in the history of the world, not the Middle East, the world. When you look at the tapes, and the tapes are there for everyone to see. So he has that problem. That problem should have never happened. Now, if I were president, that problem wouldn't have happened because Iran had no money. They were stone cold broke.
Are you frustrated at all with Prime Minister?
So from the horse's mouth, are you frustrated with Netanyahu? Nope. We're good.
Right.
We're good. We're good. And if you listen to Rubio pointed out, hey, Trump supports what Netanyahu is doing. Right here. Rubio confirms, just so the audience will see, I don't want you thinking behind the ball. The cradle. This is Esteban Carrillo's outfit. Marco Rubio confirms U.S. supports expansion of the Israel war on Gaza. When asked during an interview with Margaret Brennan on CBS whether the U.S. supports expansion of Israel's war on Gaza, U.S. Secretary of State Rubio replied, "We expand the destruction of Hamas, that is ending of Hamas." So from their point of view, well, every baby that starves to death is effectively Hamas. So yeah, we support the expansion of the war on Gaza in this way. That's outrageous.
Yeah, well,
and one
the
last
other
clip,
thing
because I
is,
want to get
it's very
no, go ahead.
clear.
Now play the clip back.
Yeah, it's very clear that Netanyahu and Trump are on the same page about their original plan, which they told everyone about, complete with memes, of moving the Palestinian people out of Gaza. And now the plan is to bring 1 million Palestinians to Libya, right?
Yes.
So there's no daylight between Netanyahu and Trump. And again, to the extent they pretend there is, it's all theater to make people, again, to try to lull people into complacency, right? So they think, oh, okay, this is going to be solved. The Palestinians are going to be fed. War's going to end, so we can go back to sleep.
Yep.
But you can't go back
This
to
is
sleep. Yeah.
no, please. I'm sorry. I am interrupting you, and I don't mean to. It's like a lag. I am totally sorry. Please continue. I'll
Yeah,
do
no,
better.
no. That's my thought. I mean, this is all, and the fact some people said, well, he went all the way to the Middle East. He didn't even visit Israel. This shows no. I mean, again, that was tactical. He was in Saudi Arabia making deals. It was a sleight of hand. Okay, you look at me here. Don't look at what is happening in Gaza, and that's what's going on. It's again the same thing Biden did. There's also no daylight between Trump and Biden or Kamala Harris on this. This is a bipartisan genocide. Let's be very clear about that. Even Bernie Sanders can barely muster condemnation for what's happening. Both parties are on board here.
Yeah. And part of that sleight of hand too was chum like the same articles coming out. Trump threatens Netanyahu. Trump and Israel, have a rift, creating distance while Israel carries out that plan that Donald Trump and Israel had already agreed upon. We're going to put people in a concentration camp. We're going to get all of these millions of people kicked out of the country, this kind of ethnic cleansing. Okay, so Trump goes to Saudi Arabia as Israel proceeds with the plan that they had already agreed upon, with the media saying, well, there's a rift between these two, as if Israel is doing this purely and entirely on their own. This stuff is just media management. And then he comes out and says this. I flipped out on this clip, like on Twitter. I think I called him a degenerate and all sorts of stuff. He says this, and I want to get your take on this too.
I think Iran is right now the big problem. That's also a problem. Hamas is big, and we want to take care of the people. Look, people are starving. You see what's going on right now. People are starving. One of the things that one of the three great leaders that I saw 2 nights ago said to me, please help the people, the Palestinians. I said, other than the obvious, what do you mean by that? He said, they're starving. And he meant it with his heart. They're starving. So I've already started working on that. It's a deep problem, but we'll get it solved. And a very immediate and a very big problem is, I'm so proud of what we were able to do with India and with Pakistan. Well, it's a potential problem like that we have here. I'll get it solved, and one way or the other, I'll get it solved. It's either going to be done nicely or it's going
Give me a take on that. That clip set me off. That clip set me off like nobody's business. Give me a take on that clip.
Yeah, well, again, as we discussed, there's a number of ways the U.S. like this could solve that problem in Gaza if he really cared about people starving, and he doesn't, right? Again, I don't care what people say, especially politicians. I care what they do. And the actions speak louder than words here, and the actions are saying he is more than content to starve the people out so he can accomplish his goal and Netanyahu's goal of forcing them to leave Gaza. I mean, that's what's happening. And I don't know which three leaders he was talking about. I guess the Arabic leaders. Is that who he was talking about? Who, by the
Yeah,
way, those
probably.
leaders,
Yeah.
and they're
No, I just
doing
said
nothing.
probably.
Let me say those Arabic leaders are doing nothing for Gaza either. Why aren't they feeding people in Gaza?
Mm-hmm.
Why
So
isn't
right.
Saudi Arabia, instead of giving billions of dollars to Donald Trump, why aren't they giving aid to Gaza? Why isn't Qatar, which gave an giant airplane to Donald Trump, why aren't they giving aid? I mean, this is all these governments are complicit, right? They're all complicit. The only government that, I hold totally harmless here is Yemen, which is willing to risk everything to stop this crime. Now, I did see a statement yesterday, and again, I don't know if these are just words either, but I saw President Xi Jinping of China said, if Israel doesn't stop this, China will step in. Now, I would like to see that. I really would. But again, up till now, China hasn't done anything either. So, I'm waiting. I'm sitting
Yeah.
there waiting. Meanwhile, Palestinians are dying. I mean, it's really, and not just by starvation, the bombings are increasing, and Israeli ground troops are there now too, with tanks, with bulldozers. The bloodletting is worse than it's ever been in Gaza. I mean, it's not even that things are letting up, they're getting worse. And clearly, from Netanyahu's point of view, we know, and he says this, he says, we got to go all the way. Netanyahu, as they say, if someone tells you what they're about, you better listen. Netanyahu's
Mm-hmm.
honest, what he's doing. He is not going to let up. He can't let up. His whole political life depends on this war either continuing or going to completion, and that completion means getting rid of all the Palestinians in Gaza, and then he's going to try to get rid of all the Palestinians in the West Bank, and he's already starting to do that too. It is a terrible thing we are witnessing. I don't want people to relax. That's my message. I mean, we have to keep fighting this. This is like, again, people have compared it to being a German during the Holocaust. Like, what would you do then? Well, because you're doing it now. Whatever you're doing now is what you would have done then. Are you fighting? Are you speaking out against this?
There's something else to that I want to add to it. He is leveraging the pain, the suffering, the starvation that he is causing. Let's be very clear. Trump and Joe Biden was causing this level of destruction, this suffering that these people are going through. And he's sitting there virtue signaling, oh, it's so bad. The people are starving, as if he's this kind of impartial actor to all of this, as if he's like on the outskirts, as a third person just kind of watching it take place, like he's one of us looking at it. Oh, it's so bad. It's so horrible what is happening to the Gazans. Donald Trump is paying for that. Meaning the money that he is putting in the bombs that he is giving them. When he is flying in the Ben Gurion airport and they're dropping off bombs and missiles and bullets and those type of things, that's us paying for that. And he's using that because what he wants to do is set a context where he can then say, so we need to move them out of Gaza. It's so bad in Gaza. We need to get them out. We need to take them somewhere else. He's leveraging the pain that he himself is causing for his own political expedience of trying to get rid of the ethnically cleanse that area. That
Yeah,
it's disgusting on so many levels.
well, yeah, and I don't think he's alone in that. I think there's many governments that are basically sacrificing the Palestinian people for their own political ends, right? Including these Arabic governments, which are basically saying, "Oh, look at how terrible the Palestinians are being treated," and
Yeah.
then people come out on the streets and protest what's happening in Palestine, and they're fine with that because they're not protesting their own governments, right? That's what they don't want.
Yeah.
So they're happy for this terrible thing to keep happening. They keep pointing to that so that people aren't focused on their own problems. The Palestinian peoples are being sacrificed by many governments for their own political ends, and the Palestinians are being abandoned. I mean, there's just not, you know, uh, two ways about it. They are being sacrificed. And again, really, it's only Yemen at this point that's standing for them. And Yemen's one of the poorest countries in the world, can do very little for them, but they are doing what they can. Um, to me, this marks really the end of the United Nations as an institution. And I should say, again, I did teach international human rights law for 12 years. And, one of the things, you got to start, or one of the starting places is the creation of the United Nations and the UN
Mhm.
Charter after World War II. One of the big things that was created to stop is, of course, war, the scourge of war, but also genocide. The first human rights convention that was passed after the founding of the UN was the Genocide Convention of 1948.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the UN Charter and the Genocide Convention being ripped up in front of your eyes. If the UN can't step in and stop what's happening, it might as well just shut its doors, sell its building in New York City, and liquidate. Because it's useless. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, again, I've made a somewhat of a career on teaching about international law and whatnot, and I have lost total faith in it. It is a joke, and it does not make me happy to say that, but that's a reality.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like this. Do you think that this is going to ultimately work? Like, do you think he's really going to be able to transport? I mean, this is what, 2 million people out of Gaza at this point? Like, meaning,
That I don't see that, and honestly, I don't think in the end that is even the real plan, because it's not very realistic, is it? And that is actually
Mhm.
something countries could try to prevent. I mean, again, a million people. What are you going to do? Put them all on boats? I mean, it's just, uh, I don't see it. I think the real plan is to murder every last Palestinian in Gaza. I mean, and that's what you're seeing happening. It's to totally depopulate Gaza through mass murder and starvation. That's what's happening. I mean, think about it. Israel already has the Rafah crossing between Israel and Egypt shut. If they really wanted it,
Mhm.
there are many Gazans, because I know many, who, if they could get through that crossing to Egypt, they'd go right now. Why isn't it open if the real plan is to depopulate Gaza through expulsion? They'd open that
Yeah.
crossing. They'd open a few crossings. That's not the plan. They're being penned in. All exits are closed to them. and have been closed for most of the time since October 7th. And Israel's using Gaza as a firing range. Okay? That's all you need to know. Right? They
Yeah.
could be forcing people into Egypt as we speak.
But Egypt wouldn't accept them. Egypt has already said that that's a no. I mean, Egypt and Jordan have both
Yeah, well,
said we're
Egypt
not
said a
allowed.
lot of things. Egypt also signed a peace deal with Israel back in the 1970s, which is now being violated by the closing of the Rafah crossing, by the
Mm,
control Israel's exerting over the Rafah crossing and the Philadelphia corridor. The point is, Egypt can say all it wants. If that crossing were open, Palestinians would come in, and I don't think Egypt would prevent them. In any case, it's not like Israel's testing that, right? They're keeping it shut for a reason, to keep aid from going in and people from going out so that they can carry out mass slaughter. That's it. So that's the
mm.
plan. It's a terrible plan, but you have to see the facts for what they are. I don't see how else to interpret what is happening. Because let me just tell you, before the Rafah crossing was closed,
Mhm.
and I know this, I've been to Egypt twice since October 7th. 100,000 Palestinians went into Egypt.
Egypt.
And I know some. I mean, I know some very well.
And they accepted them. They
Yeah,
didn't prevent them from coming in.
that's right. I'm in touch with those people. So now Egypt made them, we've talked about this, made them pay, most of them pay to get in, thousands of
Yeah.
dollars, which was terrible, but they let them in if they paid. And they did let some wounded in too. That's the other thing. Egypt, even right now, would allow wounded in, right? Especially women and children. They would do that. They were doing that before the Rafah crossing was closed. Is Israel letting that happen? No. If they really wanted to depopulate the place, they'd even let that happen. They're not letting it happen. It is a turkey shoot. That is what this is. And it's so infuriating, because if we get to a point where every last man, woman, and child is killed in Gaza, the West is just going to, sorry, that was never the intention. It was always about Hamas. But oops, that happened. And that's what we do every time. I mean, I'm sorry to go on a rant, but look at Vietnam. We killed 3 to 4 million Vietnamese, mostly women and children. We
Yeah.
poisoned their country with Agent Orange and napalm, and then just walked away. And then, oops, sorry, Charlie. And, you can say the same with Libya. We destroyed Libya. We destroyed Iraq. We destroyed Afghanistan, Korea. And then we just move on and everyone forgets about it. I mean, it's a sickness. And the goal is to kill the Palestinian people and then for everyone to forget about them. Destroy all remnants that they ever existed. And that's why this plan that Trump talks about of, then we're just going to build a Las Vegas or whatever
On their
over the
bones.
remains of the Palestinian people. That is the
Wow.
plan, my friend, unless something's done. That is the plan.
So Europe has the UK, France, Spain, some of these other countries in Europe, after nearly 2 years of a genocide being committed and starvation, because the starvation didn't just start. I mean, if you remember, Israel was counting calories in order to ensure a certain amount of caloric content was going into the area. And even under Joe Biden, Joe Biden was saying, oh, we need 300 trucks. Israel was sending in like 30 trucks. So there was always starvation going on, even from the very beginning. I mean, this goes back to the Biden administration, where, if you remember, Joe Biden changed the report. Blinken, Biden changed the report from the US government saying that Israel was starving the population because it would have forced certain laws to come into play. The people who were under Biden, who wrote that report, resigned as a protest but they still put out a dodgy report that no, they're not starving the population at all. So the starvation didn't just happen. Nevertheless, Europe has come out and put out a strongly worded statement. They put out a press release saying, as humanitarian donors, we have two straightforward messages for the government of Israel: allow a full resumption of aid into Gaza immediately and enable the UN and humanitarian organizations to work independently and impartially to save lives, reducing suffering, and maintain dignity. We remain committed to meeting the acute needs we see in Gaza. Okay, I don't know what the hell that line means, the acute needs. We also reiterate our firm message to Hamas must immediately release all the remaining hostages and allow humanitarian assistance to be distributed without interference. So this is the other lie, right? That Hamas is somehow preventing humanitarian aid from getting in when they let aid in, which is a pretty convenient, trope. Because then you could say, well, we're not letting in aid because Hamas withholds the aid from the
Of
population.
course. Of course.
Then it says, it's our firm conviction that the immediate return of the ceasefire and working towards implementation of a two-state solution are the only way to bring peace and security to the Israelis and Palestinians and ensure long-term stability for the whole region. Netanyahu, of course, told them to go F themselves. Well, I mean, he put out a tweet saying, basically, I mean, you don't even have to read the entire tweet. The tweet is effectively, you're allowing Hamas to win by putting out your statement like that, which is astonishing. It took them nearly 2 years to put out a strongly worded statement of a quote unquote threats. Do you think this is the same thing as Joe Biden? I agree with you. I believe in what people do, not what these politicians say. And this is them now saying this after watching this take place for nearly 2 years.
Of
What is the
course. I mean,
motivation?
because one of the people saying this is Keir Starmer of the UK. Meanwhile, the UK is providing aerial intelligence to Israel for its bombing of Gaza. I mean, this is, again, it's all theater. I mean, look, they have to say something. The West has premised all of its carnage over the years on supporting human rights. They've premised all of their mass murders around the world on the basis of supporting human rights, which was always absurd.
Yeah.
But at least they had a fig leaf for what they were doing. So now they've been exposed in Gaza. I mean, what was all this talk about humanitarian intervention, and you're supporting this carnage on a scale we've never seen? Well, they have to say something to condemn it, because all of their
Population.
their mask has fallen, right?
Yeah.
And but again, what are they going to do? Anything to stop what's happening? I don't see it. It's disgusting to me. It really is. I don't have words to express my disdain for
Yeah,
what
I
has
agree
happened.
with you. I agree with you. I agree with you on this. I mean, it's. I have to be honest with you. I never thought I would be watching this. I know, like some of the people in the region that I talk to, they're not surprised. I got to be honest, I am. Um, if you would have told me 2 years ago that we would be sitting here watching social media day after day after day, kids get mangled, kids get bombed, kids get shot, women and children, ambulances, hospitals, schools, UN buildings. And let's be very clear, they're systematically destroying every building for the sole purpose of saying, well, there's nowhere to go, so you need to leave. Or,
Yeah.
as you point out, to exterminate the entire population. And we are just sitting here watching. Like, it's just mind blowing to me. That's all. It's just mind
Yeah.
blowing. Daniel, and by the way, you pointed out that the UN could get involved if they wanted to. Gutierrez. It's just weird to me that all of them are starting to say something at the exact same time.
Yeah. Well, it
That
is.
part is strange to me.
I think they're panicking. They're losing their populations. I mean, again, the polls show people don't buy this anymore. They don't support Israel. They have to say something to maintain some air of legitimacy. I mean, again, what is Guterres doing? What is he doing to justify his existence? Nothing. I mean, again, the UN should just have a fire sale and close up. Of course, he has to say something.
Daniel, I appreciate your analysis, man. I really do. I woke up this morning and I saw all of these posts. Donald Trump forces Israel, is threatening Israel. And I'm like, dude, we've done this last week where all of these posts were coming out about the rift between Trump and Netanyahu. And it's like, how on earth does social media, mainstream media, run with these, I don't know, these media managed articles when if you talk to Trump, Trump tells you flat out, yeah, there's no deviation. Netanyahu tells you flat out, we're going all out. We're going to finish this. Like, meaning they're telling you what they're doing. They're telling you they're working in coordination. And they still run it in media. And WAPO, random anonymous source says this. And because it's such an explosive headline, everywhere runs it without
well,
any
not just
underlying
because,
reality.
not just because it's explosive, but because the media is also complicit in the genocide. So they have to give people hope that it's going to end because they're also part of this, right?
Couldn't do it
They've
without them.
covered for Israel for since 1948, but especially since October 7th, so they're embarrassed too. So they have to give people some hope this is going to end. This is all 1984 stuff. George Orwell wouldn't even write 1984 now. I mean, it writes itself. You don't need AI to write it. It's right being written before your very eyes.
No, I agree with you. And I'm going to let you go, but the entire trip to Saudi Arabia was that way to me. Donald Trump gives a speech where he says, Iran cannot get a bomb. Okay, even our own assessment says Iran is not trying to get a bomb. Then he says they need to stop supporting terror. As he shakes the hand of head chopper Jelani and calls him a good-looking guy, etc. And you're like, okay, dude, are you being serious right now? Like, are you really is this really what you are really presenting to us as reality in this moment? Like, it's outrageous. I mean, it runs across the board, right? Even when you're talking about Ukraine, like Trump is acting like he's a mediator and he's not part of the conflict.
Right.
And yet he's sending weapons and bombs and intelligence over to Ukraine as they continue the war, even though he's acting as a mediator. Like, I'm not part of this. I'm just, I'm a third man out. And even in that conversation, when he's talking to Brett Baer, and Brett Baer is asking him effectively like about the Gazans, and he's like, "Oh, it's such a horrible case." And Brett Baer never brings up, "Yeah, but you're paying 80% of that. Couldn't you just stop the money and the weapons? Wouldn't they, let the humanitarian aid in?" He never brings it up. He never brings it up. Even with Jelani, he never points out, "Hey, but wasn't that guy chopping heads? Wasn't that guy killing Americans? Like, wasn't that guy part of leadership of ICE?" They never bring it up. It's just amazing.
These questions are never asked. They're never asked of our presidents either. We went to war in Iraq based on a lie. Everyone knows it's a lie now. And yet George W. Bush still gets a front row seat at Jimmy Carter's funeral. Does anyone in the press ever say, hey, do you feel bad about the fact you lied to us and murdered all these Iraqis for nothing? No one asks those questions. They never do. And that's why the show like this is very important, because we ask those questions. That's the key.
Dan Kovalik, American human rights, labor rights lawyer, political activist, previously taught international human rights at the University of Pittsburgh School of Law. One last question. I'm just curious. You taught human rights. This has to be just mind-blowing to you.
It's heartbreaking to me. By the way, I was in Chicago O'Hare Airport, and a former student of mine stopped me, and she was very friendly. I mean, I really did love my students, and I really love teaching. And again, now, and I'm actually considering teaching in Bangladesh. I was offered a job there to teach international human rights.
Really?
Yeah. But it's a very hard thing to teach now, given what's happening. It really is demoralizing. So, but that is what it is.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you, man. I really do.
Thank
for
you.
this.
I appreciate you. You're a good guy. Really. I love you, man. You take